Lass uns mit einem Gebet anfangen. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this morning.
Lieber himmlischer Vater, wir danken dir für den Morgen.
Thank you for this new grace you want to bestow upon us.
Danke für diese neue Gnade, die du über uns ausgießen möchtest.
Even though we don't deserve it at all.
Auch wenn wir sie gar nicht verdient haben.
But you want to save us, and I thank you that you want to now unfold new things out of your word.
Aber du möchtest uns retten und danke, dass du uns jetzt neue Dinge aus deinem Wort entfalten möchtest.
Please help us that we have open hearts and can understand the spiritual meaning of them.
Und bitte hilf uns, dass wir offene Herzen haben und dass wir die geistliche Bedeutung davon verstehen können.
And please help also Brother Mark when he lays out these points, that he can place them understandingly and correctly.
Und bitte hilf auch Bruder Mark, wenn er diese Punkte auslegt, dass er sie verständlich und auch richtig darlegen kann.
And please bless us all and also those that are watching.
Bitte segne uns alle und auch diejenigen, die zuschauen.
And we want to thank you in Jesus' name.
Und wir möchten dir in Jesu Namen danken.
Amen.
Amen.
Okay. We go first point. Let's go back to Daniel 1.
Zuerst einmal gehen wir zurück zu Daniel 1.
And I just want to remind us about something and then also correct myself from yesterday on a point.
Ich möchte uns an etwas erinnern und dann auch noch eine Sache korrigieren von gestern.
Okay, the first thing is just to remind us back, Daniel, at least we understand, Daniel 1 to 4 represents the first Sunday law, right?
Und uns zu erinnern, eben Daniel 1 bis 4 stellt das erste Sonntagsgesetz.
Okay, so yesterday we're dealing with Daniel 1 and I'm coming down to this point. I'm just dealing with the structure, right?
Gestern haben wir das eben so aufgeschrieben und wir haben mit diesem Punkt gehandelt, also eigentlich haben wir nur die Struktur gezeigt.
Okay, because we would have a time of peace here and the end there, so it would bring you down to this point.
Also man hätte hier eine Zeit des Friedens, also es wäre das Ende und das führt uns dann zu diesem Punkt.
Okay, so don't get dismayed about that. That's just, we're just dealing with the point that, you know, Christ is standing here and based upon the parables, this is the structure that we're dealing with,
Also
right?
werdet darüber nicht verwirrt, denn basierend auf den Gleichnissen, also Christus steht hier und der führt uns dann hier hinunter.
We get that point.
Kann jeder diesen Punkt verstehen?
Yes. Okay, so the other point is, and I got reminded about this afterwards yesterday, and I realized myself, was that if we go to if we go to verse 12.
Also ein anderer Punkt ist noch, daran wurde ich gestern nachher erinnert, gehen wir zu Vers 12.
It says, "Prove thy servants, I beseech thee, 10 days, and let them give us pulse to eat and water to drink." Now, I had completely forgotten this point, that this takes place immediately when they're brought into Babylon. Right?
Ich hatte diesen Punkt ganz vergessen, dass das eigentlich stattfindet, wenn sofort, als sie nach Babylon gebracht wurden.
Okay, and I was paralleling it with these 10 days that is at the end here.
Ich
Right?
habe das parallel gesetzt mit diesen 10 Tagen, die am Ende sind.
Okay, and I'd forgotten this point, that it's actually representing this whole period of the Sunday law.
Ich habe diesen Punkt vergessen, dass es eigentlich diese ganze Zeitspanne des Sonntagsgesetzes darstellt.
However, remember that the number 10 is a symbol of a test.
Aber denkt daran, dass die Nummer 10 ein Symbol eines Tests
Okay,
ist.
and these 10 days, right, it says, okay, verse 5.
Also gehen wir zu Vers 5.
Says, "The king appointed them a daily provision of the king's meat and of the wine which he drank, so nourishing them 3 years, that at the end thereof they might stand before the king." So it's the whole period from when they come into Babylon that they have been fed this food, right?
Das ist die ganze Zeitspanne, wenn sie nach Babylon gebracht werden, wo sie eben diese Speise ihnen gegeben wird.
So they're not Yeah, and this was the point, that they're not suddenly at the end refusing to eat it, right?
Das ist ja nicht, wenn sie am Ende dann plötzlich sich weigern, es zu essen.
Okay, but bring back to this point here, right?
Wenn wir das hier zu diesem Punkt nochmal zurückbringen,
Okay, what is Christ giving you here?
was gibt Christus dir hier?
Based upon what we're talking about. There's many things here.
Was wir
Food, wine, blood.
Scott, why are you listing all those things? Based upon what we're talking about. We're talking about, we're just,
food,
right, so,
blood of the wine, the flesh, the word, manna.
okay, the manna is the answer we're looking for, right? Manna is what they were given to eat, right?
Also das Manna war es, was ihnen gegeben wurde zu essen.
Okay, so, because right here Christ it tells the 10 virgins that they're to gather oil, right?
Weil es sagt ja den 10 Jungfrauen hier, dass sie das Öl sammeln
And
sollen.
the oil is the manna,
Das Öl
right?
ist das Manna.
Okay, so Christ here instructs them to eat the true flesh and blood.
Also Christus unterweist sie hier, dass sie das wahre Fleisch und Blut essen.
Okay, but right here there's this counterfeit,
Aber
right?
hier ist diese Fälschung.
So you have, and I put this in place, yes, you have this 1260, and here you have this 1260. It's this the true and the counterfeit.
Und wir haben das gestern am Platz gelegt, dass hier diese 1260 ist und auch hier. Und das ist eben das Wahre und das Falsche.
So that 10 days would be this period here.
Also diese 10 Tage wäre diese Zeitspanne
But
hier.
we also have 10 days marked here for 10 days before August 11th, 1840, 10 days before October 22nd.
Und hier drin haben wir auch 10 Tage markiert, also vor dem 10 Tage vor dem 11. August und 10 Tage vor dem 22. Oktober.
Okay, so you can see that there's 10 at all different levels representing a test.
Also da
Right.
kann man sehen, wie die 10 auf verschiedenen Ebenen ist und das stellt einen Test dar.
Okay, and from here you have 10 virgins, right? So you've got this 10 representing the test at every level.
Und von hier hat man diese 10 Jungfrauen, also man kann sehen, wie diese 10 ist ein Test auf verschiedenen Ebenen.
Okay, but that doesn't take away from this fact. Just go back to Revelation chapter 2.
Aber gehen wir zurück zur Offenbarung 2, weil das nimmt nichts von dieser Tatsache weg.
It's verse 10.
Vers 10.
It says, "Fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that ye may be tried, and ye shall have tribulation 10 days. But be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life." Right? And the point I just want to make is this: the prison experience, right, is related to this point, right, where you get delivered up.
Also diese Gefängniserfahrung, das bezieht sich dann auf diesen Punkt hier, wenn man ausgeliefert wird.
Okay, and that takes us back to Genesis 39 when we finished on yesterday.
Das bringt uns zurück zu 1. Mose 39, wo wir gestern aufgehört haben.
So if you just go back to Genesis 39
Gehen wir zurück zu 1. Mose 39,
and verse 1.
Vers 1.
It says, "And Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him of the hands of the Ishmaelites, which had brought him down thither." So there's just a point that I was looking at yesterday. What is Potiphar doing here?
Das ist ein Punkt, den wir gestern angeschaut haben. Was macht Potiphar hier?
Yeah, he pays for him, right?
Also zahlt für ihn.
So what is that
Was ist
in the
das
prophetic narrative?
in der prophetischen Erzählung?
Pays the price man.
No, I know you know the answer, but they're just sitting there looking at this. So it says there that and Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him of the hands of the Ishmaelites, which had brought him down hither. So what is he buying here?
Was kauft hier?
How's he buying the land? He's buying Joseph.
Also er kauft nicht das Land, sondern Josef.
Right? No guessing. What does it say? Right?
Was
Who is Joseph?
Wer ist Josef?
Christ.
That's got nothing to do with what this point. That might be true, but how? I mean, look, just read the story literally. He was in with his Ishmaelites. These Ishmaelites he'd been sold to them and taken as a slave, right?
Also, wenn man die buchstäbliche Geschichte liest, dann wurde er von den Ismaelitern genommen und dann an sie als Sklave verkauft.
So if Potiphar's buying him, what is he buying?
Wenn also Potiphar ihn jetzt kauft, was kauft er?
Right, he's buying a slave,
Er
right?
kauft einen Sklaven.
So where does that take your mind to?
Wohin bringt euch das gedanklich?
Right, okay, so just go to Exodus 21.
Diese 30 Silberlinge, oder, ja, genau, gehen wir zu, Exodus.
Exodus 21.
2. Mose 21.
Go to verse 28.
Dann geht zu Vers 28.
It says, if an ox gore a man or a woman, that they die, then the ox shall surely be stoned, and his flesh shall not be eaten, but the owner of the ox shall be quit. But if the ox were wont to push with his horn in time past, and it hath been testified to his owner, and he hath not kept him in, but that he hath killed a man or a woman, the ox shall be stoned, and his owner also shall be put to death. But if there be laid on him a sum of money, then he shall give for the ransom of his life whatsoever is laid upon him. Whether he have gored a son or have gored a daughter, according to his judgment shall it be done unto him. If the ox shall push a manservant or a maidservant, he shall give unto the master 30 shekels of silver, and the ox shall be stoned. Okay? It's a deep allegory, right?
Das ist eine tiefe Allegorie.
Okay, so just keep your place there a minute and go to 1 Kings 22.
Haltet euren Finger hier und gehen wir zu 1. Könige 22.
And this is this story about when Micaiah prophesies about Ahab and Jehoshaphat when they joined together to go up and fight together.
Das ist diese Geschichte, wo Ahab ist.
Yes, Ahab and Jehoshaphat.
Also wenn Ahab und Jehoshaphat kommen, um Krieg zu führen.
Right, and they're going up to fight against Syria.
Und sie kommen, um gegen Syrien zu kämpfen.
But if you go to verse 10,
Gehen wir aber zu Vers 10.
and the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat and the king of Judah sat each on his throne, having put on their robes in a void place in the entrance of the gate of Samaria, and all the prophets prophesied before them. And Zedekiah the son of Chenaanah made him horns of iron, and he said, Thus saith the Lord, with these shalt thou push the Syrians until thou have consumed them. What's he given him?
Was gibt ihm?
Right. He's given him this thing with two horns on it, right?
Gibt ihm diese Sache mit diesen 2 Hörnern drauf.
And it says that you're to push them with it, right?
Und er hat gesagt, er soll sie damit gegen sie stoßen.
Okay, we understand that Ahab is this represent the United States.
Wir verstehen, dass Ahab die USA darstellt.
The United States is this two-horned power,
Die USA ist diese zweihörnige Macht.
right?
Richtig?
Okay, and if you just go, so you go back to Ezekiel 21,
Gehen wir zurück zu Exodus.
Exodus 21, sorry.
Gehen wir zurück zu 2. Mose 21.
So obviously this allegory is speaking about this power at the end of the world.
Da spricht dieses Gleichnis dann über diese Macht am Ende der Welt.
Okay, so the only way that it can be redeemed is by like paying these 30 shekels of silver.
Und die einzige Möglichkeit, wie das erlöst werden kann, ist durch diese 30 Silberlinge.
Okay, so which is a representation of Christ standing in the place of sinners.
Und das ist eine Darstellung für Christus, der an die Stelle von Sündern tritt.
Now I'm not sure that I understand this allegory here fully, but you can just see that's what it's referring to, although I don't fully understand it.
Also man kann sehen, auf was es sich bezieht, auch wenn wir es nicht wirklich vollständig verstehen.
Everybody see that?
Kann ich Sie da sehen?
Okay, the point is that the Potiphar, right, he's a civil power and he buys Joseph, a type of Christ.
Der Punkt ist, dass Potiphar erst die Staatsmacht und er kauft eben Josef für einen Preis eines Sklaven.
Okay, pays the price of a slave, right?
Also, you said in place?
Pays the price of a slave.
Okay, also er bezahlt diesen Preis eines Sklaven.
Okay, so in this sense, Potiphar is like Potiphar is illustrating the work of a civil power that's doing the work of Christ in paying the price for Joseph.
Also in diesem Sinn stellt Potiphar die Staatsmacht dar, die jetzt den Preis für Josef bezahlt. Also das stellt ein Werk Christi dar.
Okay, so and at least at this point here, Potiphar represents something positive.
Also an diesem Punkt hier stellt Potiphar also etwas Positives.
Okay, but if we just come down to this point where we were looking at yesterday,
Gehen wir jetzt aber hinunter zu dem Punkt, den wir uns gestern angeschaut haben.
Verse 12.
Das ist Mose 39, Vers 12.
It says, "And she caught him by his garment, saying, Lie with me, and left his garment in her hand, and fled, and got him out. And it came to pass, when she saw that he has left his garment in her hand, and was fled forth, that she called unto the men of her house, and spake unto them, saying, See, he hath brought an Hebrew unto us to mock us. He came in unto me to lie with me, and I cried with a loud voice." So you can see that this is a counterfeit of the true, right?
Also man kann sehen, das ist eine Fälschung des Wahren.
Did you finish your sentence?
Yes.
Okay, and what was the point I was going to make? And that she's accusing him falsely.
Man kann sehen, dass sie ihn falsch anklagt.
Okay, so we understand that you have this test. We've been looking at this test through all the parables, right?
Wir verstehen, dass hier dieser Test ist und wir haben uns diesen Test durch all die Gleichnisse angeschaut.
Okay, but just based upon the narrative in Genesis, I want to suggest that, or at least still hold on to the point that Joseph is representing somebody that's having the same test here at this little box.
Basierend auf der Erzählung in 1. Mose möchte ich vorschlagen, dass eben Josef diesen selben Test dann in dieser ersten kleinen Box hat.
Okay, so it finished off yesterday in verse 20.
Gestern haben wir in Vers 20.
And Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, a place where the king's prisoners were bound, and he was there in prison. And that was the thought that we finished yesterday. But although he was in prison, he was made to prosper.
Also das war der Gedanke, mit dem wir gestern aufgehört haben, aber obwohl er im Gefängnis war, also wurde er zum Gedeihen gebracht.
Okay, go to Genesis chapter 40.
Gehen wir zu 1. Mose 40.
Okay, it says, and it came to pass after these things that the butler of the king of Egypt and his baker had offended their lord the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was wroth against two of his officers, against the chief of the butlers and against the chief of the bakers, and he put them inward in the house of the captain of the guard into the prison, the place where Joseph was bound. So it just brings you to the same place now, right?
Das bringt dich jetzt zum selben Platz.
And the captain of the guard charged Joseph with them, and he served them, and they continued a season inward. And they dreamed a dream, both of them, each man his dream in one night, each man according to the interpretation of his dream, the butler and the baker of the king of Egypt, which were bound in the prison. Okay, so in this box here, right, you've got this baker and the butler, these two classes, right?
Also in dieser Box, da gibt es jetzt den Bäckermeister und den Mundschenk, diese zwei Klassen.
Now, I don't understand still, because these two here, they're not internal, they are these external powers, right?
Und ich verstehe das noch nicht ganz, weil diese Leute hier sind eben nicht interne Mächte, sondern externe.
Okay, these are Gentiles that are being put in prison here.
Das
right?
sind Heiden, die ins Gefängnis geworfen wurden.
Okay, but I just want to make this point that it's in this little box where they have this dream.
Und ich
Right?
möchte diesen Punkt machen, dass es in der kleinen Box ist, wenn sie diesen Traum haben.
Okay, verse 6.
Vers 6.
And Joseph came in unto them in the morning and looked upon them, and behold, they were sad. And he asked Pharaoh's officers that were with him in the ward of his lord's house, saying, Wherefore look ye so sadly today? And they said unto him, We have dreamed a dream, and there is no interpreter of it. And Joseph said unto them, Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me them, I pray you. And the chief butler told his dream to Joseph, and said unto him, In my dream, behold, a vine was before me. And in the vine were 3 branches, and it was as though it budded, and her blossoms shot forth, and the clusters thereof brought forth ripe grapes. Okay, so what is that an illustration of?
Wovon ist das eine Darstellung? Was ist sie?
The end of the box when you birth.
Okay.
Embodied for blossoms.
Yes, okay. No, it's not what I'm looking for. Go to Matthew 13.
Dann geht zu Matthäus 13.
And if you go to just trying to find it where it's
Und der den Mark vor.
yeah, maybe Mark 4 where it's actually
The 3 steps.
yes, go to, it doesn't show them there, go to Mark chapter 4
Also hier zeigt es das nicht. Gehen wir zu Markus Kapitel 4
down in verse 27.
und Vers 27.
It says, in fact, let's read verse 26.
Lesen wir zuerst Vers 26.
And he said, So is the kingdom of God, as if a man should cast seed into the ground. Right, so we're at the beginning, where the sower is, right?
Wir sind am Anfang, wo der Seemann ist.
And should sleep, brings you to this point,
Also
right?
wenn schläft, das bringt uns zu diesem Punkt.
And rise night and day, right? So this is this day and night where they're crying, right?
Das ist dieses Tag und Nacht, wenn sie rufen.
And the seed should spring and grow up, he knoweth not how. For the earth bringeth forth fruit of herself, first the blade, then the ear, and after that the full corn in the ear. But when the fruit is brought forth, immediately he putteth in the sickle, because the harvest is come. So, in Mark chapter 4, it takes these 3 steps, the blade, the ear, the full corn ear, and it's marking it in right at the end here, right?
Also Markus 4 nimmt es diese 3 Schritte, der Halm, die Ehre und das volle Korn in der Ehre und markiert das eben hier drin.
Okay, Sister White takes those 3 steps and she marks it from the beginning here, right? You have the blade, the ear, the full corn, right? She's taking it as in the growth from when you become a Christian all the way to the end.
Und Ellen White nimmt diese 3 Schritte und wendet das also hier an, also der Halm, die Ehre und das volle Korn. Und das ist von, wenn du ein Christ wirst und dann wie du wachsen musst bis zum
Okay,
Ende.
it's the same as those 3 measures of meal, right?
Das ist dasselbe wie diese 3 Maß Mehl.
Okay, but the point is that when you're dealing with that, you're dealing with somebody here that's converted at the beginning.
Aber wenn wir hierüber sprechen, dann ist es jemand, der hier am Anfang bekehrt wurde.
Okay, this is dealing with people like for here, the lost sheep don't have this experience.
Und er spricht über zum Beispiel die verlorenen Schafe, die dann nicht diese Erfahrung haben.
They're having that experience all here at the end when they get saved.
Sie haben diese Erfahrung dann alles am Ende, wo sie gerettet werden.
Okay, but the point I just want to make is that these 3 steps in this illustration are in the little box.
Und der Punkt, den ich machen will, dass diese 3 Schritte in dieser Darstellung sind in der kleinen Box.
Okay, so another illustration of it is if you go to Isaiah 27.
Und eine weitere Darstellung, wenn wir zu Jesaja 27 gehen.
Isaiah 27, which is marking this point at the end where the Lord is coming to punish.
Jesaja 27 markiert diesen Punkt, wenn am Ende, wenn der Herr kommt, um zu bestrafen.
Verse 1.
Vers 1.
In that day the Lord with his sore and great and strong sword shall punish Leviathan the piercing serpent. So this is the punishment on Babylon.
Das ist die Bestrafung auf Babylon.
Even Leviathan that crooked serpent, and he shall slay the dragon that's in the sea. In that day sing ye unto her a vineyard of red wine. I, the Lord, do keep it. I will water it every moment, lest any hurt it. I will keep it night and day. Right? There's, what do we see there?
Was können wir da sehen?
Okay, so what's it representing?
Nacht
Where
und
did we
Tag.
just read that? In Mark 4. So day and night, and it brings you down to the point, right?
Das haben wir in Markus 4 gelesen und das ist Tag und Nacht und das führt uns dann zu diesem Punkt hin.
It says, Fury is not in me. Who would set the briars and thorns against me in battle? So it brings you down to this point where the briars and thorns are going to manifest their character, right?
Das bringt dich dann zu dem Punkt, wenn diese Stacheln und Dornen ihren Charakter manifestieren werden.
Okay, who would set the briars and thorns against me in battle? I would go through them, I would burn them together, or let him take hold of my strength, that he may make peace with me, and he shall make peace with me. He shall cause them that come of Jacob to take root. Israel shall blossom and bud and fill the face of the whole world with fruit. Same experience, right?
Dieselbe Erfahrung.
These 3 steps all manifesting themselves right there at the end to those that take hold upon the strength of Christ.
Diese 3 Schritte, die sich dann für diejenigen sind, ganz am Ende, wenn sie festhalten an der Kraft Christi.
Everybody see that?
Kann das jeder sehen?
Okay, so when you go back to Genesis 40, right?
Gehen wir zurück zu 1. Mose 40.
Joseph's in prison, right?
Josef ist im Gefängnis.
Okay, and like I say, I want to suggest that it's in this box, and the experience is the same, right?
Ich möchte vorschlagen, dass es eben in dieser Box ist und die Erfahrung ist ja dieselbe.
Okay, so go back to verse 8.
Gehen wir zurück zu Vers 8.
And they said unto him, We have dreamed a dream, and there is no interpreter of it. And Joseph said unto them, Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me them, I pray you. And the chief butler told his dream to Joseph, and said to him, In my dream, behold, a vine was before me, and in the vine were 3 branches, and it was as though it budded, and their blossoms shot forth, and the clusters thereof brought forth ripe grapes. So you have the same experience, right?
Man hat hier dieselbe Erfahrung.
And Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and I gave the cup unto Pharaoh's hand. And Joseph said unto him, This is the interpretation thereof it. The 3 branches are 3 days, yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thine head and restore thee into thy place, and thou shalt deliver Pharaoh's cup into his hand after the former manner, when thou was his butler. But think on me when it shall be well with thee, and show kindness, I pray thee, unto me, and make mention of me unto Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house. For indeed I was stolen away out of the land of Hebrews, and here also have I done nothing that they should put me in the dungeon. When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was good, he said unto Joseph, I also was in my dream, and behold, I had 3 white baskets on my head, and in the uppermost basket there was of all manner of baked meats for Pharaoh, and the birds did eat them out of the basket upon my head. Who's this guy?
Wer ist dieser Mann?
Think of the parables.
Denkt an die Gleichnisse.
He's the one by the wayside,
Er
right?
ist der beim Wegrand.
So he's also manifesting that he's this one by the wayside, right? That all the things that were put in his mind are stolen away from him, right?
Also er manifestiert jetzt auch, dass er derjenige am Wegrand ist und all die Sachen, die in seinen Verstand gelegt wurden, die werden jetzt von ihm weggestohlen.
Because it says the fowls came and took that away that was sown, right?
Weil es sagt, die Vögel kamen und haben das weggenommen, was gesät wurde.
It says, and Joseph answered and said, This is the interpretation thereof. The 3 baskets are 3 days, yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thy head from off thee, and shall hang thee on a tree, and the birds shall eat thy flesh from off thee. Okay, so what's that an illustration of?
Wovon ist das eine Darstellung? Zerstörung von Babylon.
I mean, yes, I mean it's the same things happening there, but it's not obviously not the destruction of Babylon, right?
Also dieselben Dinge passieren dort auch, aber das hier ist also nicht die Zerstörung von Babylon.
It's marking a judgment from Christ,
Es
right?
markiert ein Gericht von Christus.
I mean, the destruction of Jerusalem, the same things happen,
In der
right? We
Zerstörung
read this some weeks back.
Also in der Zerstörung von Jerusalem passiert ja dasselbe, das haben wir vor ein paar Wochen.
Sorry?
But you said that they are Gentiles.
Yes, I know they're Gentiles, but it's a person. It's not a punishment on a nation. That's the point I'm making. It's just marking a punishment, right?
Also es sind zwar Heiden, aber es markiert nicht die Bestrafung auf eine Nation, sondern also auf Einzelpersonen.
The point I'm making is just marking the point because just go to Revelation 19.
Also gehen wir zur Offenbarung 19.
Verse 17.
Vers 17.
It says, I saw an angel standing in the sun, and he cried with a loud voice. Who is this?
Wer ist das?
Christ was his people.
Revelation 19, verse 17.
Offenbarung 19, Vers 17.
What did you say, Maris?
Christ or his people.
It's Christ, right? But what's he doing?
Er ist Christus, aber was macht er?
He's giving a loud cry, right?
Einen lauten Ruf.
What did Potiphar's wife do?
Was hat Potiphas Frau getan?
Let's go back to Genesis 39 and verse 14.
Gehen wir zurück zu 1. Mose 39, Vers 14.
It says, that she called unto the men of her house, and spake unto them, saying, See, he hath brought in an Hebrew unto us to mock us. He came into me to lie with me, and I cried with a loud voice. So it's this at the beginning, right? She wants to now execute judgment upon him, right?
Das ist jetzt am Anfang, da möchte sie jetzt das Gericht über ihn ausführen.
She actually, if you read the spirit of prophecy, she actually wanted him put to death, but Potiphar knew that he was not guilty and put him in prison.
Also wenn man den Geist der Weissagung liest, dann steht da, dass sie eigentlich wollte, dass Josef zu Tode gebracht wird, aber Potiphar wusste, dass er unschuldig war und hat ihn ins Gefängnis
And
geworfen.
the point I want to make, it just marks the execution of the judgment.
Der
Right?
Punkt, den ich euch sehen lassen will, ist markiert einfach die Ausführung des Gerichts.
Because if you go back to Revelation 19,
Wenn wir zurück zur Offenbarung 19 gehen,
verse 17,
Vers 17,
and I saw an angel standing in the sun, and he cried with a loud voice, saying to all the fowls that fly in the midst of heaven, Come and gather yourselves together to the supper of the great God, that ye may eat the flesh of kings, and the flesh of captains, and the flesh of mighty men, and the flesh of horses, and of them that sit on them, and the flesh of all men, both free and bond, small and great. It's marking the execution of the judgment,
das
right?
markiert die Ausführung des Gerichts.
Right?
Richtig?
So when you go back to Genesis
Gehen wir zurück
chapter
zu
40,
1. Mose 41.
it's talking about how Pharaoh is going to execute judgment upon the baker.
Also 1. Mose 40, das markiert den Punkt, wenn jetzt der Pharao das Gericht über den Bäcker ausführen will.
Right? That's just what it's illustrating. It's not the punishment on Babylon, it's an illustration of where he's going to have judgment executed upon him.
Also das stellt eben nicht die Zerstörung oder die Bestrafung auf Babylon dar, sondern wenn dieses Gericht jetzt über ihn,
Right? Because the birds are the angels.
weil diese Vögel sind die Engel.
Right?
Richtig?
Okay, just go to the book of Jude.
Geht zum Buch, also zum Judasbrief.
Verse 14.
Vers 14.
It says, And Enoch also, the seventh from Adam, prophesied of these, saying, Behold, the Lord cometh with 10,000s of his saints to execute judgment upon all. So when he comes, what does he come to do?
Wenn er kommt, zu was kommt er zu tun?
To execute judgment,
Das
right?
Gericht
And
auszuführen.
that's what he's doing. He's coming with all the fowls of the heaven. He's coming to execute judgment.
Und
Right?
das macht er ja, wenn er mit all den Vögeln des Himmels kommt, da kommt er, um Gericht auszuführen.
The kings are in Christ's stead, right?
Die Könige sind an Christi Stelle.
Kings are this sword in Romans 13,
Die Könige sind dieses Schwert in Römer 13.
right? And they are to execute judgment upon the wicked,
Und sie
right?
sollen das Gericht über die Bösen ausführen.
So it's easy to see here when you just do this that the butler represents somebody who is righteous and the baker represents somebody who is unrighteous.
Also deswegen, wenn man das so versteht, dann kann man sehen, es ist einfach zu sehen, dass der Bäcker jemand darstellt, der ungerecht ist und der Mundschenk, der gerecht ist.
Right? They're not God's people because they don't understand the prophecy. Joseph is the one that's revealing it to them,
Sie
right?
sind nicht Gottes Volk, weil sie verstehen nicht die Prophetie, aber Josef ist derjenige, der es ihnen offenbart.
Right?
If you are using Roman 13, then you want to be that it's Christ, yes. Those-
No, the kings are set
the
up by
kings are-
Christ to do that. He sets up who he was and he takes down who he was.
Also die
Right.
Könige sind ja durch Christus aufgerichtet und das, also weil er tut ja diejenigen aufrichten, die er möchte und absetzen, die er will.
They are set upon the earth to act in his stead. It doesn't mean that they're Christ.
Sie sind auf dieser Erde aufgerichtet, dass sie an seiner Stelle handeln, aber das heißt nicht, dass sie Christus
No,
sind.
but we said that the civil power punishes Jerusalem, yeah? The wicked in Jerusalem. That's
It
right.
also punishes the righteous.
Die Staatsmacht, die bestraft die Bösen,
I don't know what your
Jerusalem,
point is,
aber
Maris.
auch die Gerechten.
Nice. Okay.
No, what's your...
There's no one, so.
If the civil power comes to punish the unrighteous, right, What's your point with that? Remember, the civil power has been drinking the wine of Babylon, so it can't be Christ.
No, they are not Christ.
Okay, so that's why I'm.
But if the baker is a Gentile or not God's people, why are they being punished by the civil powers?
Who's Pharaoh?
The civil powers.
So and Pharaoh's going to punish him.
Also
I see
voraus
that,
die
but
Staatsmacht
why-
und wird den Heiden bestraft.
Do the civil powers, are they not here to rule on the earth and punish the righteous and unrighteous? That's what they're there for, not just for God's people, but for everybody.
Die Staatsmächte sind ja hier auf der Erde, um die Bösen zu bestrafen, nicht nur Gottes Volk, sondern jeden.
I thought that those who are not God's people get punished by the south and the east.
Also
Scott, you're referring to something prophetic that's talking about a point when the Lord allows the south to rise up against the north. That's got nothing to do with the daily running of a nation. Right? This is talking about just people that have upset the civil power or broken the law and are put in prison.
Also wenn der Süden oder der Osten bestraft, das ist, wenn Gott das dann hervorbringt, diese Bestrafung, also er lässt es zu, aber das hier spricht über das tägliche Geschehen bei einer Staatsmacht. Das sind einfach Leute, die das Gesetz zum Beispiel gebrochen haben und sie werden jetzt durch die Staatsmacht bestraft.
For instance, in Daniel chapter 2, when the magicians and astrologers, which are part of his kingdom, right?
Zum Beispiel in Daniel 2, die Magier und Zeichendeuter, sie sind ja Teil von seinem Königreich.
When they can't tell him the dream, what does he want to do to them?
Wenn sie ihm den Traum nicht sagen können, was will er mit ihnen tun?
Okay, so who is he?
Er will sie töten. Wer ist er?
Who's who?
Who is Nebuchadnezzar?
Wer ist Nebukadnezar?
It's the civil power.
And he wants to put to death who?
Die Staatsmacht, und wen will er
The
töten?
magicians.
Right, his own people, right?
Sein eigenes
So
Volk.
what's the difference here?
Was ist dann hier der Unterschied?
Nothing, right?
Nichts.
Okay, it's just marking this point, right? So when I don't know why there's two Gentiles in the prison with Joseph. I've always wondered that, and I don't know the answer.
Es
Right.
markiert hier diesen Punkt. Und ich weiß nicht, warum es zwei Heiden sind, die mit Josef im Gefängnis sind. Ich habe mich immer darüber gewundert und ich weiß nicht die Antwort.
But it doesn't matter. The point is, it's using the parable language to show that one is righteous and one is unrighteous,
Aber
right?
das tut nichts zur Sache, weil es zeigt einfach, dass dieses Muster, dass der eine gerecht ist und der andere ungerecht.
Okay, Joseph is the one that's revealing it to them,
Und
right?
Josef ist derjenige, der es ihnen offenbart.
Okay, and the king, as is ordained in Romans 13, is going to punish the unrighteous,
Und der
right?
König, so wie er bestimmt ist in Römer 13, wird jetzt die Ungerechten bestraft.
These are just facts,
Das sind
right?
einfach nur Tatsachen.
Okay, so, and when you come down to verse 20,
Gehen wir zu Vers 20.
it says, And it came to pass the third day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, that he made a feast unto all his servants, and he lifted up the head of the chief butler and of the chief baker among his servants. And he restored the chief butler unto his butlership again, and he gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker, as Joseph had interpreted to them. Yet did not the chief butler remember Joseph, but forgot him. Right? So, whatever you can, I mean, it's not about chronology, but verse 23 has to be taken into consideration, right?
Also es geht jetzt hier nicht um Chronologie, aber Vers 23 müssen wir in Betracht ziehen.
Okay, so Joseph doesn't come out of prison, he is forgotten, right?
Josef kommt nicht aus dem Gefängnis, er wird vergessen.
Okay, so now you come to the next chapter.
Jetzt kommen wir zum nächsten Kapitel.
It says, And it came to pass at the end of 2 full years. So now there's this period of time is elapsed, right?
Jetzt ist diese Zeitspanne vergangen.
That Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he stood by the river. Now the reason why I want to suggest that would be this period of time between this and this, right?
Den Grund, warum ich vorschlagen will, dass es diese Zeitspanne zwischen hier und hier ist,
is because if you go to if you just go down to verse, in fact, just let's read it. We'll come to this point in a minute.
Wir lesen jetzt weiter, wir werden zu dem Punkt dann gleich kommen.
In verse 2.
Vers 2.
And behold, there came out of the river 7 well-favoured kine, and fat-fleshed, and they fed in a meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them out of the river, ill-favoured and lean-fleshed, and stood by the other kine upon the brink of the river. And the ill-favoured and lean-fleshed kine did eat up the 7 well-favoured and fat kine, so Pharaoh awoke. And he slept and dreamt the second time, and behold, 7 ears of corn came up upon one stalk, rank and good, and behold, 7 thin ears, blasted with the east wind, sprung up after them, and the 7 thin ears devoured the 7 rank and full ears, and Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. Okay, so if we just, Pharaoh, right, is having a dream, right?
Also Pharao hat einen Traum.
So Joseph is here in prison, right?
Josef ist hier im Gefängnis.
And I'm just trying to put this in place. So here you'd have these 2 years.
Ich möchte das an die Stelle, den Platz setzen. Hier hätte man diese 2 Jahre.
Okay, Pharaoh's now having this dream, right?
Und Pharao hat jetzt diesen Traum.
And we understand what these things mean. They're referring to 7 good years and then 7 years of famine.
Wir
Right?
verstehen, was die Dinge, auf was sie sich beziehen. Das sind 7 gute Jahre und 7 Jahre der Hungersnot.
It says, verse 8.
Vers 8.
And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt and all the wise men thereof, and Pharaoh told them his dream, but there was none that could interpret them unto Pharaoh. Then spake the chief butler unto Pharaoh, saying, I do remember my faults this day. Pharaoh was wroth with his servants, and put me inward in the captain of the guard's house, both me and the chief baker. Right, so it has to be something past tense because it's mentioned right here.
Es
Right?
muss etwas in der Vergangenheit sein, weil es wird hier erwähnt.
Right? If it's in the narrative there, it's part of the narrative.
Wenn
Right?
es hier in der Erzählung ist, dann ist es Teil der Erzählung.
So he's at a point now after Joseph has dealt with these 2 guys in the prison, right?
Also er steht jetzt an einem Punkt, nachdem Josef da im Gefängnis mit diesen 2 Leuten war.
Right? Otherwise it wouldn't be written there.
Sonst wäre das hier nicht geschrieben.
You can't ignore that, right?
Man kann das ja nicht ignorieren.
So, verse 11.
Vers 11.
Now he explains what happened in the past.
Jetzt
right?
erklärt er, was in der Vergangenheit geschehen ist.
And we dreamed a dream in one night, I and he. We dreamed each man according to the interpretation of his dream. And there was with us a young man, an Hebrew servant to the captain of the guard. And we told him, and he interpreted to us our dreams. To each man according to his dream did he interpret. And it came to pass, as he interpreted to us, so it was. Me he restored unto mine office, and him he hanged. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon. And he shaved himself and changed his raiment and came into Pharaoh. Okay, so I would want to suggest that that's right at the beginning here.
Also ich möchte vorschlagen, dass das hier am Anfang ist.
Okay? It says, And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is none that can interpret it. And I have heard say of thee that thou canst understand a dream to interpret it. And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, It is not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace. Right? And then he tells him the dream. Right?
Jetzt sagt er ihm den Traum.
In verse 24.
Vers 24.
And the thin ears devoured the 7 good ears. And I told this unto the magicians, but there was none that could declare it unto me. And Joseph said unto Pharaoh, The dream of Pharaoh is one. God hath showed Pharaoh what he's about to do. Right? So, if you just hold your place there, go to Joel chapter 3.
Wenn ihr euren Finger hier haltet, geht zu Joel 3.
verse 14.
Vers 14.
It says, multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of the Lord is near in the valley of decision. Right? Where's the day of the Lord?
Wo ist der Tag des Herrn?
It's near.
It's near, right? It's not come yet, right?
Also es ist nahe, es ist noch nicht gekommen.
Okay, and so when you come back to Genesis 41, right?
Wenn wir zurück zu 1. Mose 41 gehen,
Verse 25.
Vers 25.
And Joseph said unto Pharaoh, the dream of Pharaoh is one. God hath showed Pharaoh what he's about to do. The 7 good kine are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dream is one. And the 7 thin and ill-favoured kine that came up after them are 7 years. And the 7 empty as blasted with the east wind shall be 7 years of famine. This is the thing which I have spoken unto Pharaoh. What God is about to do, he showeth unto Pharaoh. Right? Now, my question is, what is it that he's about to do?
Meine Frage ist, was ist kurz davor zu tun? Pharao zu bestrafen?
No,
7 years of famine, good, 7 years of famine.
right, he's going to bring 7 good years, right?
Es wird 7 gute Jahre.
This is what it's got. He's showing him what's about to come to pass, and it begins with 7 years, 7 good years, then followed by 7 years of famine,
Also
right?
zeigt ihm, was kurz davor ist zu geschehen. Zuerst diese 7 guten Jahre und dann die 7 Jahre der Hungersnot.
So what he's about to do is bring 7 good years, right?
Also was dabei ist zu tun, diese 7 guten Jahre zu bringen.
Okay, it says, behold, there come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt, and there shall arise after them 7 years of famine, and all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine shall consume the land. And the plenty shall not be known in the land by reason of that famine following, for it shall be very grievous. And for that the dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice. It is because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. Now therefore let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. So he has to set him over the land of Egypt before the 7 good years begin, right?
Also muss ihn über das Land Ägypten setzen, bevor die 7 guten Jahre anfangen.
Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up the 5th part of the land of Egypt in the 7 plenteous years. And let them gather all the fruit of those good years that come, and lay up corn under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the cities. And that food shall be for store to the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, that the land perish not through the famine. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, Can we find such an one as this, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, Forasmuch as God hath showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. So Joseph is representing the wise, right?
Joseph stellt die Weisen dar.
Okay, because all character is manifested, whether you're wise or foolish, right here. Right?
Jeder Charakter wird hier manifestiert, ob man weise oder töricht ist.
It says, Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, See, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. Okay, so now he marks the end, right? Where he's now set over the land,
Jetzt
right?
markiert das Ende, wo über das Land gesetzt ist.
And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand, and put it on Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen. This is Ezekiel 16, right? When the Lord redeems his people,
Das ist Hesekiel 16, wenn der Herr sein Volk erlöst.
right? Puts on them this vestures of fine linen, right?
Zieht ihnen dann diese Gewänder von feinen Leinen an
And put a gold chain about his neck. And that chain is, and just go to Revelation 20.
Und diese Kette, wenn wir zur Offenbarung 20 gehen,
Verse 1.
Vers 1.
And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. Right, so he has this chain now, which is this. He understands the prophetic narrative, right?
Hat jetzt diese Kette in seiner Hand und also er versteht die prophetische Erzählung.
Okay, so it's marking now, it goes from the end of a time of trouble to a time of peace, right?
Markiert jetzt, wenn es vom Ende einer Zeit der Trübsal zu einer Zeit des Friedens.
Because Satan's getting bound there, right?
Weil Satan wird hier gebunden.
Joseph is loosed from prison, Satan gets bound.
Josef wird vom Gefängnis gelöst und Satan wird gebunden.
Okay, and if you go back to Genesis 41,
Wenn wir zurück zu 1. Mose 41.
and he made him to ride in the second chariot which he had, and they cried before him, bow the knee, and he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. So every knee shall bow, right?
Vers 43, also jedes Knie wird sich beugen.
And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphnath-Paneah, and he gave him to wife Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, and Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. So as soon as he's set up there, what does he immediately do? Verse 45.
Bald aufgerichtet wird, in Vers 45, was macht er sofort?
Goes.
It goes where?
Wohin geht er?
Just go by the narrative there. What's he?
Egypt is the world, right? That's what it's,
Yeah, but that's neither here nor there. We're just dealing with what's beginning right there according to the prophecy.
Was fängt dort an, gemäß der Prophezeiung?
Okay. What we were reading. What's going to shortly come to pass?
Was wird in Kürze geschehen?
So what's he doing?
Also 7 Jahre, gute Jahre, was macht er also?
gather the grain.
Right, that's what he's doing. He's going out now. He's marking the beginning of the 7 good years. Right?
Also das macht er, sammelt jetzt das Korn und das markiert jetzt den Anfang der 7 guten Jahre.
So as soon as he reveals this thing to Pharaoh, and Pharaoh sets him up, puts on these garments of him, right? There's a marriage mat, and the 7 good years begin.
Also sobald er diese Dinge Pharao zeigt, da wird er eben aufgerichtet über das ganze Land. Eine Ehe wird dort, eine Hochzeit wird dort markiert und the 7 years begin.
Yes.
Und die 7 Jahre fangen an.
Because the very next verse 47,
Weil in Vers
46,
Vers 46,
it says, and Joseph was 30 years old. Where would that put him?
Josef war 30 Jahre alt. Wo wäre das?
Right, the baptism, like Christ, right?
Bei der Taufe, so wie Christus.
When he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt, so it tells you, when he stands before him, he's 30 years old.
Er
Right?
sagt, wenn er vor ihm steht, ist er 30 Jahre alt.
And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went throughout all the land of Egypt. And in the 7 plenteous years the earth brought forth by handfuls. So you can see when he's sent forth now, he's dealing with these 7 years of plenty,
Also
right?
wenn er hier vorwärts gesandt wird, dann sind das diese 7 Jahre der Fülle.
Okay, so for this reason, right, Pharaoh's having his dream here.
Aus diesem Grund hat Pharao seinen Traum hier.
Okay, and those magicians and astrologers would be the false prophets externally that would bring down fire from heaven there.
Diese Magier und Astrologen, das wären die falschen Propheten extern, die dann hier Feuer vom Himmel bringen.
Okay, trying to deceive everybody.
Sie versuchen jeden zu verführen.
Okay, but Joseph represents God's true people. They're very elect that they don't get deceived.
Weil Josef stellt Gottes wahres Volk dar, also die Auserwählten, die nicht verführt werden.
Okay, and he gives the revelation, and he is redeemed and set over all the land.
Also er gibt dann die Offenbarung, wird dann erlöst und über das ganze Land gesetzt.
Okay, and if you just go to verse 50,
Geht zu Vers 50.
It says, and unto Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of famine came. So if you just think about it now, what would these 2 sons represent?
Wenn ihr darüber nachdenkt, was würden diese 2 Söhne darstellen?
Lost son and the other son.
The what sons?
The lost son and the other son.
Der verlorene Sohn
Publican
und
and
der
the
andere.
Pharisee. Gaining.
Okay, yes, the 2 classes and why?
Also diese 2 Klassen, wie Pharisäer und Zöllner, und warum?
Because 2 classes are formed once upon
Okay, the 2 classes are formed before we get to here, right?
Die 2 Klassen werden geformt, bevor wir zu diesem Punkt ankommen.
Okay, you can just see this. Go to Matthew 25.
Das können wir sehen, geht zu Matthäus 25.
In verse 1.
Vers 1.
These parables really help us now to understand these things. It says, verse 1.
Also die Gleichnisse helfen uns, das zu verstehen. Gehen wir zu Vers 1.
Then shall the kingdom of heaven be likened unto 10 virgins which took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom. That's right here, right?
Das ist dann hier.
And they are to gather manna,
Sie
right?
sollen das Manna sammeln.
Okay, and that's what Joseph is doing this day. He's bringing forth the corn by handfuls, it says,
Das
right?
macht Josef dann hier. Also er sammelt das Korn in den Händen.
It says, and 5 of them were wise and 5 were foolish. They that were foolish took their lamps and took no oil with them, but the wise took oil in the vessels with the lamps. And it brings you down to the beginning of the time of trouble here, where the 2 classes now begin to manifest themselves, right?
Vers 4, das führt uns dann hier zum Anfang dieser Zeit der Trübsal, wo die 2 Klassen jetzt sich anfangen zu manifestieren.
Yes?
Richtig?
Okay, so if you go back to Genesis 41,
Gehen wir zurück zu 1. Mose 41,
verse 50.
Vers 50.
And unto Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of famine came, which Asenath the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, bare unto him. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for God said, He hath made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. And the name of the second called he Ephraim, for God hath caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. Now if you just, regardless of who they literally are, if you just read the words, what do we see?
Ganz gleich, wer sie buchstäblich waren, wenn man einfach nur die Worte liest. Was können wir sehen?
One forgetting, one fruitful.
Yeah, one brings forth fruit and the other one makes him forget what?
Also der eine bringt Frucht und der andere, was lässt er ihn vergessen?
Forgets his toil in his father's house, right?
Er vergisst sein Wirken oder was heißt man? Seine Bemühungen und seines Vaters Haus.
Right, so you can see that Manasseh is represents something negative and Ephraim is represents something positive.
Also man kann sehen, dass Manasse etwas Negatives darstellt und Ephraim etwas Positives.
Right?
Richtig?
And then if you just go on, right, it says, verse 54,
Lesen wir Vers 54.
and the 7 years of dearth began to come. And that will bring you to here, right?
Das würde uns hier hinbringen.
Yes?
Ja.
According to Joseph had said, and the dearth was in all the lands, but in all the land of Egypt there was bread. Okay, so it's like Elijah now. There should be no, there's a famine in the land unless it's according to my word, right?
Das ist wie bei Elia, da ist jetzt eine Hungersnot im Land, es sei denn, dass es von seinem Wort ist.
And when all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread, and Pharaoh said unto all the Egyptians, Go unto Joseph, what he saith to you, do. And the famine was over all the face of the earth, and Joseph opened all the storehouses, and sold unto the Egyptians, and the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt, and all countries came into Egypt to Joseph for to buy corn, because the famine was the sore in all the land. So the Gentiles are now coming to, would be Elijah, right? Which in this case is Joseph, right?
Also die Heiden kommen jetzt zu Elia und in diesem Fall ist es Josef.
Okay, and then in verse 42 it marks his 10 brothers, which is the nations, right? They also come up, right? It's marking these two sticks, how they're going to get joined back together, right?
Und in Kapitel 42, da markiert es jetzt diese 10 Brüder, also die Welt, die jetzt zu ihm kommt und das markiert dann, wenn diese 2 Stöcke miteinander verbunden werden.
Right, we follow.
Konnte hier jeder folgen?
Okay, so the reason why I went through this again is because this is directly related to Daniel chapter 2, right?
Und der Grund, warum ich da nochmal durchgegangen bin, weil das direkt in Bezug auf Daniel 2 steht.
Okay, so it will help us to understand these things better.
Das wird uns helfen, dass wir diese Dinge besser verstehen.
Right, so everybody follow the logic about Joseph being here and then, right, here when he reveals Pharaoh's dream to him.
Also konnte jeder der Logik folgen, dass Josef hier ist und danach hier, wenn er den Traum von Pharao offenbart.
Right. Okay, so I don't profess to understand everything, but if we just go by these things and allow the Lord to correct us, we will eventually get there.
Also ich gebe nicht vor, all diese Dinge zu verstehen, aber wenn wir einfach mit diesen Dingen vorwärts gehen und erlauben, dass der Herr uns korrigiert, dann werden wir dahin kommen.
Okay,
letztendlich.
let's close with prayer.
Lass uns mit Gebet abschließen.
Dear Heavenly Father,
Lieber himmlischer Vater,
Lord, I want to pray that you would really help us.
Herr, ich möchte bitten, dass du uns wirklich hilfst.
We are but dust,
Wir sind nur Staub,
and we can do nothing of ourselves.
wir können nichts aus uns selbst tun.
And these words are your thoughts and not our thoughts.
Und diese Worte sind deine Gedanken, nicht unsere Gedanken.
And I pray that you'll open our minds to help us to realize our need to search these things out.
Und ich bete, dass du unsere Augen öffnest, dass du uns hilfst, unser Bedürfnis zu sehen und dein Wort zu durchforschen.
To never rest satisfied that we have the truth.
Dass wir nie zufrieden damit bleiben, dass wir die Wahrheit
And
haben.
as you begin to correct us,
Und wenn du uns anfängst zu korrigieren,
help us, Lord, to ensure that all the other things that are needing to be corrected are adjusted accordingly.
hilf uns, dass wir dann sicherstellen, dass alle anderen Dinge, die noch korrigiert werden müssen, dann angepasst werden dementsprechend.
Help us not to become weary with this,
Hilf uns, dass wir nicht müde damit werden,
but help us to remember that the truth sets us free
sondern hilf uns, dass wir daran denken, dass die Wahrheit uns freisetzt.
and error never sanctifies.
Und der Irrtum heiligt niemals.
So we thank you that you are a kind and loving God,
Wir danken dir, dass du ein liebevoller und freundlicher Gott bist.
and you're constantly reproving and correcting us,
Und du tadelst und korrigierst uns beständig,
that we might come to a knowledge of the truth.
dass wir zu einer Erkenntnis der Wahrheit kommen mögen.
And we ask, and we thank you and ask this in the name of Jesus.
Wir danken dir und bitten das im Namen Jesu.
Amen.
Amen.